Hi everybody, Harris here with iDownload Blog. So Apple gave us a lot of new information with the iPhone 13, 13 mini, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max discussions in their keynote that we just saw. But there's a variety of features, both pro and con, good and bad, that they didn't tell us or didn't explicitly mention. And we're going to go over 10 plus, somewhere between 10 and 15 of those features in this video. Let's get started. Number one, so we saw that the iPhones started at 128 gigabytes of storage now instead of 64 gigabytes. I think there's a lot of people who can really stick with that 128 gigs of base model, but Apple still wants to make it enticing to get 256, so they dropped the price $50 to upgrade to 256 gigabytes. So instead of $150 more, it is just $50 more now for that 256 gig upgrade, which is great. Number two, last year the CPU and the GPU on the A14 were the same for the 12 mini, the 12, and the 12 Pro. But this year with the iPhone 13 mini, we have the same 4 cores as we saw before, but now we have 5 cores with the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. So a little bit more performance out of the GPU and an extra core with the Pro models of the iPhone 13. And we've also seen the RAM distinction stay the same. We have 4 gigabytes for the 13 model, and we have 6 gigabytes for the 13 Pro series. Next, that stupid carrier activation thing, which Apple actually calls an instant discount. So if you buy one of your iPhones through a carrier, you get the automatic $30 discount, which really just means Apple's charging $30 more for the unlocked version. That's still here, so you still have that. Next, there is support for dual eSIM. So now you can go dual eSIM, which you couldn't before. Before you had to do one physical SIM and one eSIM, but now for whatever purposes you need, you can go with 2 eSIM cards if you're on the go and need different carriers, different SIM cards. So that's a great option. Now for the eWorld, we have dual eSIMs with all of the new iPhone 13s. Next, Apple did not reveal the price of the 1 terabyte iPhone 13 Pro Max. It's $1599, so that's in the price territory of something like the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3. So it's a pretty pricey phone, $1,600 for the maxed out 13 Pro Max. I keep saying iPhone 12. Next, the iPhone's camera bumps on the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max have gotten bigger. So we had the big camera bump last year with the iPhone 12 Pro. Wasn't huge though, but this year it has gotten bigger. And this also means that cases are now different between the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro. Last year you could use the same cases for either your iPhone 13 or 13 Pro because it was the same footprint, which is still the same this year, but now the camera is different. So the whole camera modules have actually been redesigned on all of the phones. So the 12 and the 12 mini, the camera modules have of course gone diagonal, but it's also gotten shrunken a little bit and a little bit wider. And the module on the Pro models have just gotten bigger and a little bit thicker in general, which means that you either need a thicker lip around the back of the case to protect your camera or a bigger ridge around the camera cutout to protect your camera with the Pro models, or it means that your phone's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable and a little bit more wobbly on a table if you use it without a case. So that's just something to keep in mind. Bigger camera module, which makes sense. We have more optical zoom this year and we have just much better camera systems in general. So it is slightly bigger again, and we're going to have a pretty beefy camera system on the Pro and Pro Max this year. Next, speaking of beefier, every iPhone this year is thicker. So they've all gone from 7.4 to 7.65 millimeters, or 0.29 to 0.3 inches. There won't really be a huge difference from the iPhone maybe 12 mini, but for the bigger phones you're probably going to notice that. But more substantially, there's a weight increase to every phone as well, and with the iPhone 13 Pro Max that goes from 8.03 ounces to 8.46 ounces, or 228 grams to 240 grams on the Pro Max. So an already heavy phone has gotten heavier, and that's going to be because of the new internals and also better battery this year, so that is a trade-off. But otherwise, the height and the width of the phones are the same. It's just thickness and weight. Next, the notch is 20% smaller, yes, but it's a little bit taller this year, which is going to be interesting and it'll probably take a little bit of an adjustment. Now, despite it being smaller, you still don't get a battery percentage on your status bar. Hopefully Apple adds that with iOS 15 down the road. Next, the cinematic video that Apple showed off with the awesome focus tracking maxes out at 1080p 30 frames per second. So full HD, no 2.7K, no 4K, no 60 frames per second, anything like that. I'm sure it'll still be amazing, but that's just something to keep in mind. Even on the best 13 Pro Max, you are still getting 1080p for that new cinematic video. And finally, you may have seen this already, shooting 4K ProRes on the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max does require you to have a 256 gigabyte iPhone, so you can't get by with the bare 128 gigabyte model. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on these changes and these little tweaks that Apple didn't quite mention. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.